Welcome back, everyone. Guess what? We have all of the, premium flagship iPhone, 12 Pro, 13 Pro, 11 Pro, and iPhone XS's. And let's go ahead and kind of see how they all kind of compare. Now, I've been doing a lot of these types of videos for the 13 series just because it's so interesting to see what the changes were from one generation to the other. Now, these were all $1,000 phones from Apple. So the iPhone XS came out in 2018, the iPhone 11 Pro came out in 2019, the iPhone 12 Pro just came out in 2020, and the iPhone 13 Pro came out like 2-3 weeks ago. So it's very interesting to see the changes between these. Now, starting off with the back, one big thing I do want to note is that the iPhone XS I do have a skin on, so do keep that in mind, but this is just that standard glass back, very, very similar to something like an iPhone 11 that I have here, just a standard glass back, so no frosted. And this was a pretty good design phone. I liked it at the time, and the back of it was pretty premium as well. They did bring this new gold color, which looked really awesome, and I was a huge fan of. But then with the iPhone 11 Pro, this completely changed up the whole entire perspective of Apple, in my opinion. This was, one of the phones I used up until last year, and this was a beautiful phone. The new frosted glass back was one of my favorite new additions to this iPhone, but you also got a triple camera setup, and since then, every single iPhone has actually gotten a triple camera setup for their $1,000 plus phones, and it's only a matter of time before they add another sensor. And this was a premium camera for sure. I'm a huge fan of this camera. I think I still used it not too long ago, and it was awesome with that camera comparison actually. And this frosted glass back was beautiful, and this was one of my favorite iPhones of all time. I still am in love with this phone. And then with the 12 Pro, this is the phone I'm currently using. I still have not switched over to my 13 Pro yet, and it still retained a lot of the same thing with the iPhone 11 Pro. So you still have the frosted glass back, triple camera setup, but Apple did three major things. They added a LiDAR sensor, which apps really haven't used too much, but it's still cool to have. They added the flat sides to it, which still feel extremely premium, and they increased the screen size of it to 6.1 inches from 5.8 inches. And now with the iPhone 13 Pro, they really didn't do anything super crazy from the iPhone 12 Pro. They added way bigger camera sensors, a way bigger battery, and the back and the design of this phone still feel the same, but there is a pretty big size difference going from an iPhone 12 Pro to the iPhone 13 Pro. And when I mean size difference, I meant weight. The iPhone 13 Pro is definitely a much heavier phone than the 12 Pro. If you're going from an iPhone XS to a 13 Pro, you're definitely going to feel a little bit of a heavier phone here. Now, if we switch them over to the front, this is probably where we're going to start seeing even more similarities between all of these. So when you look at them, I don't even think you can tell that big of a difference, to be completely honest. The iPhone XS had a 5.8-inch OLED panel. It still looks pretty good. The iPhone 11 Pro has a 5.8-inch panel. And now with the iPhone 12 Pro and 13 Pro, they increased that to 6.1 inches. Now the biggest difference between all of these is that with the iPhone XS, you only had a 60 Hz panel. With the iPhone 11 Pro, you only had a 60 Hz panel. With the iPhone 12 Pro, you only have a 60 Hz panel. Now with the iPhone 13 Pro, we have a 120 Hz ProMotion panel. So this is a massive difference between these. Now if I start off with the front with the iPhone XS, you will definitely see overall there's not really too many differences. The notch has gotten a little bit smaller, but for the most part, it's not as crazy of a difference as you may have expected to be. I mean, with the iPhone XS, I think it's a great looking phone still, but with something like an iPhone 13 Pro, it's very interesting to see the similarities between them. I mean, if you threw me an iPhone XS and threw me an iPhone 13 Pro, and I was just kind of like an average user, I probably wouldn't be able to tell like at first glance which one is which. Of course, with the 13 Pro, you're getting the flat sides, you're getting a much, more premium back and everything, but from the front, they are so similar. It's so crazy. Now, with something like an iPhone 11 Pro, this phone still feels like a $1,000 phone. It feels so good in the hand. The 13 Pro definitely feels more premium because of its flat size, I feel like, and its heftiness as a heavy phone. So between these two, I still have a lot of respect for the iPhone 11 Pro. Like I said, I used it for over a year and it was a great phone. But the 13 Pro is looking to be a massive upgrade from even an 11 Pro, even a 12 Pro in many different areas. If you have an iPhone 11 Pro, I probably still wouldn't recommend upgrading to a 13 Pro, but it's a pretty decent upgrade. You're getting that ProMotion display, which is one of the biggest differences between these two, but especially between an iPhone 12 Pro and an iPhone 13 Pro. There are such minor differences, but it's so funny because even between these two, it's not really a waste of money. Like going from an iPhone 11 Pro to an iPhone 12 Pro kind of seemed like a waste of money for me. I was getting worse battery life from the iPhone 12 Pro, and it just didn't seem like that good of an upgrade. I was going to have to upgrade to it anyway just to make reviews on and stuff, but it just didn't seem like that crazy big of an upgrade. But now, going from an iPhone 12 Pro to an iPhone 13 Pro, this is actually a pretty big difference in my opinion. You're getting better battery life, you're getting faster performance, which I don't even care too much about, but you're getting that ProMotion display, which is that biggest difference. And I feel like I've said it a billion times now. But like I mentioned, when you have something like a 12 Pro, which was so similar to the 11 Pro, this is a pretty big difference, and it's very interesting because it seems like every other generation Apple does a major thing. So if we even step back from an iPhone XS and we go to something like an iPhone 8 and 8 Plus and iPhone 10, that was a massive difference. Not really for the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, but for the iPhone 10, that was a major difference. And then with the iPhone XS, it really wasn't a crazy big update. Like, there wasn't really a crazy thing. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like an extra gig of RAM, kind of better front-facing camera. But other than that, it was pretty much the same phone, just kind of reincarnated. Now with the iPhone 11 Pro, this was actually a pretty big upgrade. I feel like, you were getting a much better build quality and added camera setup, which was really impressive. Way better battery life than the iPhone XS series, and overall a solid phone for sure. But then when we step up and we go to something like an iPhone 12 Pro, although visually there was a pretty big difference with the flat sides, and a little bit of a bigger display, I don't really think it was that big of an update. I think a 10s to an iPhone, 11 Pro was a bigger upgrade than an iPhone 11 Pro to an iPhone 12 Pro. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And now when we sit here and we look at something like an iPhone 13 Pro, the phone that, the phone of phones in a way, the phone that has so much capability, so much better battery life than all these other iPhones, ProMotion, I'm going to tell you, if you pick up an iPhone 13 Pro, you are going to feel like you are future-proofed for many more years. I feel like this is one of those phones you can buy today, and you won't really have to buy for the next several years. When I look at phones, even with the iPhone XS from 3 years ago, almost 4, well, it's 3, but like, you know what I mean, it's almost 2022. This phone, I mean, I still think this phone holds up extremely well. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But when I look at these, right, since the 11, I didn't feel like the 12 Pro was going to hold up better than the 11 Pro. I feel like the 11 Pro was going to hold up the best, and even now I would still recommend buying an 11 Pro over a 12 Pro just because you can get it for so much cheaper than a 12 Pro. But here's the thing, the 13 Pro I think is an even better version of the 11 Pro. This thing has so many more features, and the biggest thing they can do in my opinion is pretty much two things: remove the notch and pretty much add reverse wireless charging. Those two things are probably what they're going to do for the next two iPhones. Maybe they'll remove the notch with the next one, that's a rumor state, and maybe they'll add like reverse wireless charging after. So we'll see how it goes, but as of right now, I think going to something like an iPhone 13 Pro from any of these other iPhones is a solid option. Now, again, I would recommend you to keep the phone that you have if you don't need to upgrade. But if you're in the middle of an upgrade and you have the option of going to a 13 Pro, or if you're trying to figure out which value per dollar is the best one, I will tell you, between all these, the iPhone 11 Pro I think is the best value per dollar. If you're trying to find the iPhone that's gonna like get you from point A to point B, it's not gonna take too much money, this is a perfect phone for you in my opinion. But the iPhone 13 Pro, if you have the money, getting this phone, you're going to be future-proofing yourself like crazy. If you don't care about the notch, this is a perfect phone in my opinion, and I would probably recommend you guys to update to it. So in terms of that covers it up here. If you want to pick up these iPhones, I'll try to find them linked down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.